And Fox News recently did a segment about the threats against election workers across the country, and it's a straight news report. So first, we're going to watch it. Take a look.
Election officials are now facing more death threats as we get closer to the midterm elections. Senior correspondent Eric Shawn is on that for us. So, Eric, security is also ramping up then.
It really is, and it has to be, Sandra, because there's active shooter training now for poll workers, bulletproof glass for offices. You know, the democratic process of voting in our country, they say, is really under siege. Election officials reporting across the country that there has been an increase in violent threats against them. In Mesa, Arizona, police were called when voters saw so-called voter integrity activists in masks and touting guns monitoring the voting at a drop box. Authorities have launched voter intimidation investigations in that state. Election officials largely blame the threats on the spread of false election claims and lies about voting. The FBI now warning Pennsylvania election officials about the threats. Well, in an ongoing case right now, an Iowa man is charged with making threats. He allegedly left a voicemail that said in part this, quote, "When we come to lynch your stupid, lying, commie expletive, you piece of expletive, you're going to die. We're going to hang you. We're going to hang you."
Gee, I wonder what side is sending that kind of message. But we don't know who's doing it. But we don't know. Now, look, again, that report was factual. Yes, these things happen. And generally, okay, it's a pretty good straight news report. But what they say, I don't have an issue with anything they've said. I have an issue with what they've left out. The fact is that, you know, this is a result of mainly former President Donald Trump's lies about the election, but as well as everyone who has repeated that lie. They said that it's the result of false election claims and lies about voting. Now, that's true, but who's making these claims? What are the claims? That's important context. You might want to, you know, add that in if you're going to do a factual straight news report. But no, they didn't mention who or what. And I think that's really interesting. They didn't talk about Mike Pillow. They didn't talk about Dinesh D'Souza and his 2,000 flushes, you know. They didn't talk about how it is conservatives mainly that are spreading insane conspiracy theories that, like, your Nest thermostat is rigging your voting machines. So, you know, they avoided talking about all of that stuff and refused to identify who is making those claims. And the reason is, I believe they did it on purpose. And I'm going to show you why I believe that. Because, look, earlier that day, Eric Shawn, who was the man who delivered that report, went on Harris Faulkner's show, and here's what she had to say after it.
You know, Eric, I do think it's important for people to know that we don't know that much about these people making these threats, and that we shouldn't assume anything at all. Arizona is a toss-up state. We'll cover it as it happens, but I know people will jump to a conclusion. Well, is it one side or the other? This is about violence. It's not about politics.
We just don't know that much about these people. You know, we don't know anything really about what side they're on. You know, they had guns and they called poll workers communists and threatened and filmed people using ballot drop boxes. We just can't figure out who these people are. I just don't know. But it's not about politics. You have to remember, Eric, it's not about politics. It's anything about politics. Oh, really? No, it is about politics. But the right wing tried to intimidate people into not voting because they're spreading these same election conspiracy theories. Look, not making this stuff up. Really. Let's go to some polling, okay? A vast majority of Republicans still believe that Donald Trump won the election, that Biden had stolen it. 70% of Republicans do not see Biden as the legitimate winner of the election. And surveys by different pollsters show virtually the same results with the exception of a Washington Post University of Maryland poll that dropped that to 61%. Let me show you that. Aggregate of polls, all these different polls. Suspect election fraud. You know, they suspect election fraud. Now, is there any evidence of that? No. In fact, I had somebody come out and say, The fact that there's no evidence is evidence that there is fraud. It's too perfect. What? What are you talking about? You're a moron. You're an idiot. You're not a smart person. You're clutching to a conspiracy theory. It's ridiculous. 51%, according to a Pew Research survey back in July, said that we like it when our political leaders say Donald Trump is the legitimate winner of the 2020 election. Again, where's your evidence? Oh, right. Doesn't exist. You had multiple recounts. You had multiple investigations. You had 60 court cases to try to prove that there was widespread election fraud. You couldn't do it. You couldn't get it up. Okay? You failed. It didn't work.
Tallywhacker.
You couldn't deliver. And yet you still believe it and you cry about it. And Donald Trump cries the most out of every single person. I've never seen more of a sad, pathetic man than that guy. All the power in the world. And he cried constantly. Pathetic, sad baby. And yet, Fox News, they just can't seem to figure out who's to blame for all those death threats. Again, the election workers can't figure out, must be a big mystery. You know what? Later on, they're going to say, Antifa. It's Antifa. Of course, we knew it all along. We knew it all along. No, the reason that Fox News keeps it vague is because they don't want to piss off their base. And why? Why wouldn't they want to piss off their base? There's a lot of different reasons. But number one is that I think they realize how dangerous and unstable their base actually is. Not everybody. There's a significant portion of Republicans, about a third, that say it's time for violence. It's time for political violence. They're scared of those people. It's almost like that whole thing about leopards eating their face. Fox News is like, well, got a bunch of leopards. We really don't want them eating our face. No thanks.